I was thinking, since we're approaching SummerSlam, and SummerSlam 1990
you
is gonna hit 30 years. So I thought we'd talk about it.
know, it was one, right?
Huh?
I didn't see it. I was one. I wasn't there.
Yeah, it was 5. I don't know when I saw it. I know I didn't. Was this a pay-per-view, Lou, that you had to order? Do you know?
Uh, SummerSlam 1990.
Yeah.
SummerSlam 1990, I actually did not see on pay per view. This was a time when I did not watch pay per views when they aired. I would
Hmm.
usually get the tape. Somebody would record it, and I'd get the tape a couple of days afterwards. But thankfully, I'd always get it before the next episode of WWE Superstars would air on Saturday, the following Saturday. So I wasn't spoiled on any of the results. Um, I really enjoyed this show. Actually, still, it's amazing that 30 years later, it still holds up. Like I
Well, I
still,
was telling Chris some of the stuff. The people who are really, really good, their stuff holds up really, really well. And I compared it to hip hop. Once you get to like 1993 or 4 in hip hop, it still holds up today.
hmm
It's not that back in the day when I was 5. It's not that no more, and it became the modern style, and it's still that. I mean, now the people who can do it, like a J Cole, he's kind of still in that style. But I said the difference is that wrestling, the people got a little bit more athletic. They got faster. They didn't get stronger because you can tell back in the day there was a lot of
Juice,
gas in that ass.
a lot of juice.
These guys were monsters. They didn't get stronger. They did get faster, more athletic. And the moves, are obviously crazier. But for the most part, the super studs, their stuff holds up nicely.
yeah,
Um,
it's all it.
The one
Listen,
thing watching it, the disparity between the studs and the not so studly guys. For me, watching it, granted, with a fresh new eye, a modern eye, it was kind of glaring for me.
you talking about work rate wise, or you talking about size wise?
No,
no,
no, no, not size. I'm talking mic work, acting, and even on in the ring. Like the studs far outshine. Like the studs had to do a lot of work to carry some of these guys.
Of course. I mean, that still holds true today. Today, it's a lot. One of the big differences in what you see in this presentation against what you see in today's modern pro wrestling is every single person on that card, every person from the ring announcer to the announcers to the interviewers to the wrestlers to the valets, the managers, every single person on that show is an experienced professional. They know what they're doing. When they're out there, there's no ambiguity about who they are and what they're out there to accomplish. And you're not seeing do mistakes happen? The answer is yes, but it's a different type of mitigation because the experience level is so much higher that at the time when you got to the WWF, you were at the top of your game in whatever other regional promotion you were in at the time. It's not like today where WWE has to come in and grab people from the street and train them to be pro wrestlers, and then you get a specific style or specific presentation of wrestler versus somebody who gets trained and then goes through the indies, goes through the territories, and works in different parts of the country and parts of the world, learns different things, and they pick that up and then it wraps it into whatever presentation you see when they get to the World Wrestling Federation. So it's very, very different.
well, even today, you still have guys that worked all over the place before they got to WWE, and you can tell because those guys are usually pretty darn good when they get there.
Yep.
But either way, the first match, this was the Rockers, right, against Power and Glory. And boy, as soon as that Rockers music hit, woo! It took me back. The one thing I don't get is it's crazy how much smaller the Rockers look Well, let's just talk Sean. Sean looks like a tiny little boy. He looks 5'8". You know, he doesn't look skinny. He looks like he's in good shape, but he looks really short. Like even compared to himself. Like he looks 4 inches shorter than himself. So there must have been the cameras, something about the way it was filmed back in 1990 as opposed to the year 2000. Even Sean looks way. It could be his body type, it could be his baby face, it could be the people he's in the ring with. But I'm looking at him by himself outside, and I'm like, he looks like a little tiny human. I know he's not.
Well, the glimpses that you got of him, you barely got to see him.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, because this is gonna be, and Lou, you're gonna have to take us back. What the hell happened here? Why did they choose to take? I mean, it's a fun story, but you know,
Marty tore the house down though.
Marty tore the freaking house down.
He was kicking ass.
It was.
I was so impressed by Marty.
Were they trying to put shine on Marty? Was this just to keep the feud going?
No.
What was going on with Sean that he couldn't participate in this match?
What ended up the way that this story started was, you know, I'll take you back a few months. This probably goes back to April, May of 1990. Paul Roma at the time was working singles primarily as a babyface, underneath babyface, but he was working underneath babyface. He worked a match against Dino Bravo, which he lost, and then Bravo got a little extra on him afterwards. The Rockers basically came out and ran Bravo out. Roma, you know, not knowing, you know, who got the extra heat on them, thought it was the Rockers, and then they started beefing. And all of a sudden, Hercules Hernandez comes out and backs up Roma. So all of a sudden now you have Power and Glory. You know, they weren't known as Power and Glory at the time. Then they were wrestling as just a tag team. When they wanted to make them heels, they paired them up with Slick. And, you know, then they got the glasses and the sweatshirt gimmicks, and then you started seeing the team coming together. The issue with Shawn Michaels in this match, why he didn't wrestle, is because he actually blew out his, I believe it was his ACL prior to SummerSlam 1990. So when you watch the tape back and you see the Rockers coming to
He's
the
walking
ring,
funny. He's walking funny.
The Rockers are now the Rockers normally run to the ring, and in this case they're jogging. And Shawn Michaels looks funny. Yep. And the thing is that he could not wrestle this match, but they had to tell the story to get him out of the WWF storylines at the time. So what ends up happening is the match was essentially a handicap match. It was basically 3-on-1 because you're including Slick too. The Slick was distracting the referee and doing whatever. It was actually a really great match. It's a really short match. The match probably went about 5 minutes, maybe 6, but they told a fantastic story. I mean, Marty Jannetty wrestled both Power and Glory by himself. You know, Marty Jannetty did an outstanding job representing himself and his team. He made Power and Glory look good, especially the fact that when he took the finish, Marty Jannetty laid down for Roma's boot. Roma put the boot on him because that was establishing Power and Glory as like, okay, we are here. Mm-hmm. Now, Shawn Michaels went and got surgery right after SummerSlam 1990, and he was back by probably the end of October. You know, he came back and he was ready to go. It wasn't a huge injury, but unfortunately it happened probably a week before SummerSlam. So he was in and it happened during a non-televised show. So there was no way for Michaels to get any recovery time before that match. And
props to him for even being out there.
Yes. And the thing is,
took a couple little bumps.
When you take a look at what Power and Glory did, right? So Hercules hits him with like a kind of like a weak chain shot, right? And down he goes. And then when he went to mimic hitting him with the cane, you notice how it was in a wide shot. They never went close because I'm sure Hercules just, you know, hit the mat, you know, the mats on the floor and probably didn't even touch Shawn. So you don't want to show that on TV because they're like, the whole match would have been garbage after that had they done that. It was a fun match. You know, the one person that I really laughed watching that is the referee Freddie Sparta, because he's a guy that he's like an old WWF referee from the 80s and the 90s who he officiated a lot of the tag team matches, and he was like the 90s version of Rick Knox. You know, I give Rick Knox a lot of heat, but I would do the same thing with Freddie Sparta. The only thing is that with Freddie, when he refereed the matches, the spots were always perfectly laid out, meaning is that he knew manager's going to come in. There's always the third man on the team, but the heels. So the manager distracts, and the heels can get the heat. You know, like I say, he looks like an incompetent referee, but he's actually really good. It's just that he's playing dumb the way the referee should. You know, so and the beauty of it is that this match, realistically, the match was a good paced tag team match, particularly for Power and Glory, knowing that they weren't really an established team at the time. They'd only been wrestling as a team maybe 2 months at the time. So they wrestled a really smooth tag team match against one of the better tag teams, even though technically they only wrestled against one of them. But it was still a really, really fun match.
Hey, I tell you,
to this day,
yeah.
I still enjoy watching it.
That finisher was the highlight for me. That shit was sick.
Yeah, the finisher. I liked
into a splash, like it seemed like it was simultaneous. That shit was sick.
Yeah, I liked costuming for this match. I liked the Rockers' look. I liked Power and Glory's look. I liked they matched perfectly, same wrist tape or the hand tape. The boots. I like those boots. Brett had similar boots, all white with the heel with the back and the front, the toe. It has like that patent leather, like of a different color, all white with like the red bottom. And then they wore. This is how I want people to. If they wear white boots, wear the white tape, and then you can wear any color bottom. But either way, hey. So Chris, I know you're a big Shawn Michaels fan. Did you even know Marty was this good?
Nah, man.
That boy was good. Good.
Chris,
He carried the match, to be honest.
Chris, I'm going to give you another match that I want you to watch on your own time. I want you to go back to the Royal Rumble 1991. It's the opening match between the Rockers against the Orient Express. They're the team of Pat Tanaka and Paul Diamond as Kato with the mask. They wrestled. You're gonna if you're a big Rockers fan, that was by far one of the best exhibitions of tag team wrestling that the WWF has ever put on. The opening match of the 1991 Royal Rumble pay-per-view. Watch it tonight. The match goes about 20 minutes, but it is just freaking awesome. It is a fantastic match.
I'll go watch it too.
I think it's the best rocker match that they had on a WWF pay-per-view.
Yeah, so I've seen all these events. I used to get the tapes from across the street. There was like a mom and pop video store, and that's where I would get my tapes from. And it was easy to keep track when there was only at first like one pay-per-view, then two pay-per-views, then it went to three, then it went to four. Like, you know, it was easy to find those tapes. So I kind of got to see all the pay-per-views eventually. It took a while. I think I went a long time without seeing the first two WrestleManias, but besides that, I would eventually see them. Second match was, I believe, Mr. Perfect versus Texas Tornado, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and this is Kerry Von Erich, and this man comes out, and I'm like, Jesus Christ. He's like, if you have a picture of Ultimate Warrior and then you zoom down to 90%, that dude looks like Warrior, but 20 pounds lighter. That's it. He's basically Ultimate Warrior. Like,
I thought he was more shredded. This dude was chiseled.
That dude looked crazy. And
right away from the event starts, and I watched it was the first three matches, and I'm like, I'm going to hate this. This is their big, strong guys getting over. And I'm like, oh, God. But go ahead, Vic. Let's get into the match.
Right away they're putting over the power advantage for the Texas Tornado. And Perfect is bumping. This guy's a bumping machine. Jesus, he's bumping all over the place. It's very dramatic and over the top and cartoony, Lou, from one of the all-time greats. One of the all-time greats. But that's why, to me, that's why people respect his work, though. Like, he made other people look good. And that was, I guess, the purpose of that was his job on this night, because this dude just that's all I could think. Is every 5 seconds I'm like, Jesus. Oh man, I love Mr. Perfect though, man. I always thought he should have been a world champ. How like what part of his run is he in here, Texas Tornado, which I never liked the name Texas Tornado, but how long was he in WWE before he wins this Intercontinental title?
Kerry Von Erich signed with the WWF maybe June of 1990.
Yeah, so this is
so his very first televised match was on the Saturday Night's Main Event that aired in July of 1990. He wrestled against Playboy Buddy Rhodes. So that was his first televised match. Now, the story of this match is Kerry Von Erich was not the original opponent for this match.
Oh shit.
So here the original opponent for Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect at SummerSlam 1990 was supposed to be Brutus Beefcake. Now, in 1990, on July 4th, 1990, Brutus Beefcake had the parasailing accident where he almost got killed when he was hanging out with friends on the beach somewhere in Florida, and he had one of his female friends was parasailing, and she got both of her knees, the parasail kind of went out of control, and she got both of her knees flush on his face, literally breaking his face, nose, cheeks, eye socket, everything. He was lucky to survive. So the WWF, because again, this, if you go back, the whole story with Kurt Hennig and Brutus Beefcake began in the Royal Rumble of 1990, when Brutus Beefcake wrestled against the Genius, who the Genius was, of course, Mr. Perfect second at the time. Well, Brutus Beefcake, he and the Genius wrestled to a no contest, but then Beefcake basically gives the Genius, one of the most hideous haircuts ever. Kurt Hennig comes out and beats Beefcake up and leaves him laying. At WrestleMania 6 in April, Kurt Hennig gets his first televised loss on WWF television when he lost to Brutus Beefcake at WrestleMania. When the Ultimate Warrior beat Hulk Hogan and won the WWF title, the Intercontinental title was vacated. Mr. Perfect won the title by beating Tito Santana. They wrestled that tournament on television, and Kurt Hennig beat Tito Santana in the finals, and he became the Intercontinental champion. The story was supposed to be is that Beefcake wrestled in that tournament, but he was eliminated in the tournament thanks to Mr. Perfect's interference. So as Beefcake was supposed to wrestle against Kurt Hennig, and I believe at this point Beefcake was supposed to finally win the Intercontinental title, that he didn't win back in 1988 when he was wrestling against the Honky Tonk Man, and then in 1989, he was feuding with Macho Man Savage, and that whole, him and Hulk Hogan and Zeus and all that stuff. So then you get to 1990, he was supposed to wrestle against Kurt Hennig. Unfortunately, he had that parasailing accident, put him out of wrestling for several years. So Kerry Von Erich was brought in, and, WWF figured, okay, you look at Kerry Von Erich, look at him. The dude looked like a Greek god. He was like the perfect opponent to put. The whole purpose of the match was that it was meant, the whole Texas tornado, what does a tornado do? It just blows through everything. Mm-hmm. So the whole idea of the match was that Bobby the Brain Heenan signed the match on behalf of Mr. Perfect with 10 days notice. Mm-hmm. With 10 days, because Sean Mooney mentioned that in the interview.
Yes, he does.
10 days notice, and Mr. Perfect having really no time to prepare for the Texas tornado, because the Texas tornado basically just showed up in the WWF. So Hennig is obviously like, oh, whatever, blah, 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 taking them as lightly as you can possibly take them. Then the Texas tornado basically, Hennig did get offense on him, and he did, there was a point where Hennig did get him down, but all of the bumping and all that stuff, you could say that it looked cartoony or whatever, but the whole idea was that a tornado just runs and ravages through everything. So when he hit Kurt Hennig with that spinning tornado punch, he did that,
yeah, trust me, I have no problem with it. It's just like when people hit the big clotheslines and you flip.
Yeah.
It just adds flair. It's like, it's
just
action.
And the thing about it is with the Texas tornado, if obviously I know this because I was a little older. I was about 10 years old at the time. But the only thing that I really remember from this promo is that this was the only promo that Kerry Von Erich ever cut in the WWF. Singular promo. Because the one thing about Kerry Von Erich, God rest his soul, he looked like a Greek god. He was a fantastic wrestler, considering the fact that he wrestled with a fake foot. People don't.
Yes, which is crazy. Yes, I know that.
That's
Right, he
nuts.
wrestled with a prosthetic leg, a prosthetic ankle or foot, but the thing is, his promo sucked. He was just not a good promo. That one promo that he did at SummerSlam 1990, it just looked really awkward. And it was like Gene Okerlund, God bless him. Gene is kind of like he's hand holding him through it, but it still wasn't very good.
As he did with several people throughout the show.
Yes, but the thing
Mean
is,
Gene was stud.
with some of those guys, they have enough personality that even if they're kind of like going off the rails, Gene can still bring them back in and kind of get the stuff going. Just Kerry Von Erich just didn't, from a promo perspective, he at least that promo was not very good.
And they did him wrong by having Perfect go first, and
well, I mean, listen, Kurt. The thing about it is when you take a look at that package, right? You take a look at Gene Okerlund as the interviewer, Bobby Heenan, and Kurt Hennig. Like when you think about it, in 1990, most people take that for granted. Like, oh, this is our everyday, WWF television.
That's an insane trio.
But it's an
Crazy.
insane trio considering that Kurt Hennig could basically stand there and just fart for 2 minutes, and Gene Okerlund and Bobby Heenan would be able to tell an amazing story, especially after the match was over. Because after the match ended, Kurt Hennig he did a perfect job. He was laid out like Kerry Von Erich punched him with like the bionic, boom, just knocked him out. And Bobby Heenan going crazy, beefing with the referee, doing everything a manager should do. When he goes back to the locker room, Mean Gene's trying to he's like, oh, I'm supposed to talk to Sapphire. And then Heenan's like, and he just goes blaring at him like, I don't want you talking to anybody but me right now, blah, 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 blah. And he goes off. And then when Gene Okerlund's trying to get him to settle down, Bobby looked like he's going to beat Gene up and whatever. And then Hennig cuts his promo. And it was perfect. The thing that happened is that the title switch was supposed to happen at SummerSlam 1990, but it was supposed to be Brutus Beefcake. Kerry Von Erich was a good champion, but it didn't go as planned because basically Mr. Perfect won the belt back maybe 3.5 months later. In December, he won the belt back. Like just probably in first or second week of December on Superstars. I remember that he won the match. Obviously, it was with interference from Ted DiBiase because it was a means to kind of get the Texas Tornado away from Mr. Perfect. But then Bobby Heenan at that time he actually retired from managing. So then they brought that goofy coach character to be Mr. Perfect's manager. And then you had the match in SummerSlam 91 the following year with Bret Hart, and another classic match where Kurt Hennig lost the title, and then that was the beginning. He disappeared for a while after that because he had a lot of back injuries, and he came back at the end of 1992. So, there was a lot there. But that match was a lot of fun. It's just a matter that when I see these matches, I got very nostalgic and kind of emotional watching because I'm like, this is my childhood, and knowing that most of these people are dead. It's just like to see, like, I'm watching it with my wife and my kid, and I'm just like, all these people are dead. They're all dead, and these were like the kingpins, the stalwarts of professional wrestling, and to not have them around is just such a tremendous loss.
Well, thank you, Lou.
Thanks for bringing it down.
Jesus.
Now
Chris,
let's uplift
anything made you smile in this match, Chris?
Kerry Von Erich winning the
tornado
title.
punch. No, because I don't know much about the Texas Tornado. So going in, I know who Perfect is. I know his work. So, and this happened to me with several of the matches. I'm like, I'm excited. I'm gonna watch a little lesson here, and I got a lesson, but it wasn't the one I was expecting. Like one thing that was weird for me, and it happened a few times, where the champ came out first. I guess it was more so the heel first, and then they have the baby face come out second to get the pop. It was cool, but I didn't love this match. I felt Kurt carried it, and then it felt like one of those just let me get this guy over, and that was that. I didn't love the match, to be honest,
Well,
because I was expecting to see Kurt, put on a show, which he tried.
yeah.
But I knew the purpose of the match watching it.
Yeah. All right. Let's just keep it going. This is Sensational Sherry in the ring I guess she's gonna have a match against Sapphire, and this Sapphire storyline is all over the show. You have three different interviewers trying to find Sapphire. You're telling the story. You have
Oh, that was the thread.
Sherry and Macho Man Macho King are teasing. Oh, you haven't heard the rumors?
No, you haven't heard
You know, this is
yet, huh, bro?
we might as
But I
well.
guess the rumors are true, brother.
This is gonna end in a forfeit. You know, she's not gonna come to the ring, and you know that begins. Dusty's looking for her. They can't find her. They don't know what's going on. Dusty's gonna cut a promo. He's like, "Look, I don't know what's going on. I know she has a new Cadillac."
Business.
And what's funny is, Lou, I remember that angle. I don't know why, I don't know when, but I remember Sapphire not showing up to the match. I remember Dusty being upset. I remember Dusty chasing after Sapphire eventually towards the end of the show.
Yep.
We might as well keep it together. Let's go to that Dusty and Savage match. Dusty, obviously a stud on the mic, because you get to see this man. First, you get to see different levels of emotion throughout the show for Dusty. You're gonna see him. He's okay. He's calm. You know, maybe everything is fine. Like whatever. I don't know what's going on,
baby.
I don't know what's going on, but he seems okay. Then he starts to panic a little bit. He's starting to freak out.
Gene, I'm worried. I'm worried.
Yeah,
Gene.
I'm worried. Then they're gonna interview him. You know, after the match, and right.
But even in the match starts and he's in the ring. He looks like shit.
Yeah,
he looks stressed in the ring.
Yeah. See, this is why I didn't see NWA. I didn't get to see much of Dusty's work at all. I only knew Dusty, and that's how I know Dusty's character, Dusty as Dusty, was so great, because I love Dusty, and I probably saw him once or twice. Like, I can't even remember Dusty matches, but I remember Dusty. I remember the polka dots. I remember that angle, and I remember loving Dusty. Like this, to me, he was like this huge baby face. And I can't even remember why. I don't know why. And Lou, you can go into how much did Dusty participate? How long was his run? Did he do anything like there of? This was a super short match to Savage, and because there's a distraction, Sapphire is gonna. There's another. These are talk about masters. You have Ted DiBiase who's gonna come out and cut this promo, and he's in character 3,000%. He doesn't break a sweat. Jesus Christ, he is so good. Savage cuts a promo before the match, and he is so good. And you know, me and Chris was talking about this earlier, how Savage is just so good. Right away, 2 seconds.
Yeah.
If you've never seen Savage before, 2 seconds of him speaking, his presentation, his gear, the way he walks, the way he
rises to the crowd.
This dude is so good, so good. Clearly one of the best like ever. But you know, I like how they're gonna Dusty's gonna chase after DiBiase or whatever, but then Macho Man goes after him like, I'm gonna take advantage. You're not. I'm gonna beat your ass.
We're not gonna have 2 forfeits in one night, pal. We're gonna have a match here.
Oh, the one thing that I did see from Dusty that took me off guard, he hits a sweet like drop kick, like this one-legged. I was like, how the hell did he do that? And then there was like the purse spot. Eventually, Cherry's gonna throw in a purse, catch Dusty. He's distracted the whole time, and his face is telling you that he's distracted. He's not into this match, so it's quick. But you know, it's about the story. But well, Chris, what did you think about this? What stood out to you?
Unfortunately, the match didn't, and I was really excited for it. Just seeing the two names, and knowing, you know, so much history between them, I was looking forward to a 5-minute match at least. But I don't know if we got a minute or 2.
You probably got maybe 3.
Maybe 3 minutes of playtime.
And it was a lot. It was a nice little tease. I'm like, ooh, all right. Got a few punches from Dusty, a little dancing, the drop kick, and I'm like, okay, this is gonna be good. And then the story took over the match. Yeah, the promos is what stood out the most, besides the match, unfortunately. That Randy promo on his chair. Dude had to climb up the ladder to speak to him, and he like didn't look away. Dude just kept spinning bars, spinning his bars. He didn't look away. And in contrast to some of the guys who looked like they were obviously reading the teleprompter, and some of the camera cuts from early on had me like, these guys are struggling. This dude was just money. Like, it was great. The promo was great.
And the thing about it is that you got to give, you know, sometimes what most people don't understand is that, you know, we give Gene Okerlund a lot of props, and it's well deserved. The one thing is that Sean Mooney was fantastic.
Sean Mooney's good in this show too.
I mean, Sean Mooney, because really the three main interviewers at the time, you had Gene Okerlund, you had Sean Mooney, and from time to time in this show they went to Alfred Hayes as well. God rest his soul. But with Sean Mooney, he was so fantastic with this interview with the Macho Man, because he goes up and he's obviously standing on a platform, and when he goes up and he says there's no heights we won't, you know the WWF won't go to get the story, and then the Macho Man's like, showing disrespect to the king and blah blah blah. Like he's playing off of Sean Mooney's stuff so well, and everything. I mean, I didn't appreciate Mooney as, you know, back then as a kid, but when I watch him now, it's like, my God, he was so good. Sean Mooney was so good. Obviously the match, these two matches were obviously melded, and the story was told perfectly. The one, watching it back now, the one giveaway that I knew that the women's match wasn't going to happen is that if you take a look at Sherry wasn't dressed to wrestle.
Yeah, she's in a dress. Yeah,
Sherry's in a dress, so that should have been the giveaway. But obviously at the time, you know, you're not thinking about that. But when I watched it again for this, I was like, that was the flag giveaway. Sherry was in a dress.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Ted DiBiase's promo that he cut was longer than the match, but
it was good.
But it was fantastic.
It was great.
Because basically what their 3-4 minute promo that DiBiase cut.
That's the entertainment of that match right there.
Well, yes, but the thing is that what he did was that in summation, he basically summarized that entire summer of all those stories, because with Sapphire, that culminated at SummerSlam in August, but pretty much that whole thing with Sapphire began in like May or June of 1990. It was just like every week on Superstars, they would show Sapphire like, oh, I got a diamond ring, I got a mink coat, I got this, I got that, I got a cruise around the world, blah blah blah. Every week would be one up. And
my favorite thing is brand new Cadillac.
The brand new Cadillac. And then she came, you know, and then she came and she said, I'm going to get the biggest surprise at SummerSlam. You know, the biggest gift's going to happen at SummerSlam, which was the cash payout from the $1 Million Man. Obviously, that was a way to write Sapphire off of TV, and then to kind of go for Dusty Rhodes to attempt to become a little bit more of the NWA Dusty Rhodes. To Vic, to answer your question is about Dusty Rhodes' run. Dusty came to the WWF probably in 1989. Was it 89? Yeah, 1989. And his run went through probably the beginning of 1991. I think his last televised appearance was in the 1991 Royal Rumble, where it was he and Dustin Rhodes against Ted DiBiase and Virgil, and that was the famous Virgil finally turning babyface on Ted DiBiase. He finally
wow, Lou, that's crazy, because I remember Virgil turning on DiBiase, but I don't even remember that Dustin was in that match, and I don't remember that Dusty's in that match.
Yep.
I only remember the turn. That's crazy. Thank you.
So that's that story there. What they were doing was that they were Macho Man Savage and Dusty Rhodes had been wrestling around the loop for months. You know, we're talking about late 1989. You know, when after Dusty had his run with the Big Boss Man after the Survivor Series, Macho Man Savage, you know, won the crown. He beat Hacksaw Duggan for it. You know, because it was Harley Race was the king, then it was Haku, and then Jim Duggan beat Haku, and Macho Man Savage beat Hacksaw Duggan for it, and he just kept talking smack. Macho Man Savage was, and then he was talking about the commoner, and then that basically drew the ire of Dusty Rhodes because he's the common man, so that that drew that position together. If you go back to the Royal Rumble of 1990. there was a segment, with the Brother Love show where you had Sherry, Sensational Sherry and Sapphire, and that's where everything really got started. Like really, really got started. They had the mixed tag team match at WrestleMania 6, where it was Savage and Sherry against Sapphire and Dusty Rhodes with Miss Elizabeth on, in their corner. So that continued on, and the culmination of that storyline came at SummerSlam. Now, the match was not designed to be the culmination. It was about the turn, that Sapphire leaving Dusty for Ted DiBiase and then transitioning. Later on with that story, Macho Man Savage got moved on from that story, and then Dusty was feuding with Ted DiBiase. They introduced Dustin Rhodes. They introduced him into the storyline, with DiBiase and Virgil basically picking a fight with the Dustin. So I'll give you a good reference point. Watch Saturday night's main event from October of 1990. I don't like the theme of the show because it was an Oktoberfest theme, which I thought was silly. But they have a match between Macho Man Savage and Dusty Rhodes, which was a much longer match than this match at SummerSlam.
Yeah, I need to see that.
But the whole story of that match is that Ted DiBiase and Virgil, Dustin Rhodes is sitting at ringside watching his dad, and then basically Ted DiBiase and Virgil come down into the crowd and basically pay off all the audience members, and they basically buy the first 2 rows of ringside. And then they're just sitting next to Dustin. They're taunting him right in front of Dusty. And then it's like that whole big schmaz. And then that led to the match at the Royal Rumble. There was a match between Dustin Rhodes and Ted DiBiase where they did the same gimmick that Jericho and Jungle Boy did, that whole 10-minute time limit thing, where Dustin was able to wrestle 10 minutes with Ted DiBiase. He didn't beat DiBiase, but he lasted the time limit. Then they had the match at the Royal Rumble. Dusty and Dustin lost. That was the end of them. They both left after that. They went back to the NWA. Virgil turns on DiBiase. Then you have that whole story. Roddy Piper gets involved. They wrestle at WrestleMania. Then they have the big match at SummerSlam where Virgil beats DiBiase for the $1 Million belt. And, that goes on and on and on. So that was the story there. Like I said, it's amazing when you see these legends wrestling against each other. And I get to your point, Chris. When you see these legends, you want to see like a bigger match. Unfortunately, that was not the story. Unfortunately, the match was not the important thing here. It was the culmination of the story, and that's what led to the match being laid out the way it was.
All right. I want to get Chris. We're gonna get Tito Santana against the Warlord, and Warlord. First thing I'm thinking is, God damn, this dude is jacked. He's not like a.
He looked like Stone Cold times 3.
Times 3, yep.
No, he looked like he ate Stone Cold.
He looked like Stone Cold ate Stone Cold.
Mm-hmm.
Right off the back, when Tito Santana comes out, you're gonna see Vince is gonna bust out a Arriba, and it was actually good because it was like almost like a fan-like reaction. Like he was hyped to see Tito Santana. Warlord, 321 pounds. Santana, 244. This is a crazy size advantage right here. Santana looks like he's, 210 maybe. But,
Oh, no way.
Yeah, he's so thin compared to the rest of the wrestlers.
No way.
He must have been tall, though, right? He must have
Santana,
been pretty tall, 6'3", maybe?
Santana stands easily 6'3", and that 244, that 244 looks pretty accurate. If you might shave down 10 pounds, but not 210, bro. Not even close.
Yeah, I mean,
he looked pretty jacked.
Santana. I mean, listen, most people are gonna look like small children standing next to the Warlord. So
it was probably that. Warlord looks so big, like Jesus. He's the biggest dude on the show, right? Like in terms of not shredded, but in terms of just thickness with muscles. I can't think of anybody else.
Yes, I mean, if you're talking about
Earthquake is the biggest guy on the show.
Earthquake, yes.
But he's a fat, sloppy, not even a Vader like for something, not a Mark Henry. He is like a legitimate fat guy. Even though he's a good worker, but he's an actual fat guy. He was not like a strong man. This is like a fat guy, like home chilling, like eating Popeyes and KFC and 7 pizzas. But he could work. He could work.
That's actually incorrect. But I'll give you his stats once we get to his match. You're wrong.
I'm talking about only his appearance. I'm not talking about what he can actually do or whatever.
Okay.
Either way, this is the match where Piper goes on a racist rant.
Yeah, the whole taco thing and all that.
Yeah, but either way,
I could have a taco.
Either way, interesting thing about this match, in 1990, ring post must have still been illegal, right? Because they sell like the ring post being illegal. They distract the ref to get off a ring post shot.
Yep.
Which I thought was cool. It's cool to see that. I'd like to try to pinpoint when that changed. Um, I'm thinking the whole time Santana, when the moments of athleticism, that dude is a stud, freaky athlete here. Like he can do a lot of cool stuff. Warlord's gonna get the win, power slam. I guess my first question, what I was thinking, because I wasn't too sure, is where would these guys like their positioning in the company? How did they see Tito Santana? Was he a mid carder? Was he underneath? Was he upper mid card? And what about, and also same question with Warlord.
Well, the one thing about this match is that this actually was another substitute matchup. The original matchup was supposed to be Tito Santana against Rick Martel. That was the original. That was the original matchup. Unfortunately, Martel got injured. Probably about a couple of weeks before SummerSlam, so he was legitimately out. I remember on television they would say, they were saying, Rick Martel has a modeling assignment or something like that, to play the whole model gimmick, but he legitimately got hurt. They substituted him with the Warlord only because the Warlord and Santana had been working a lot of the house show matches against each other. So it made sense, like, all right, if you're going to have a substitution, put him in there against somebody who he's already working with. And it was a good way to get the Warlord a win on pay-per-view, which realistically, if I'm not mistaken, I think that may have been the only singles win that I could remember him getting on pay-per-view. Was that match in SummerSlam 90. The match, when I look at Santana was always considered an upper mid-card wrestler. Always considered that. And he had, he was doing very, very well for himself at the time. Obviously he had just was coming off of the feud he had against Kurt Hennig, for the Intercontinental title. So really Santana was in a good spot. It was just a matter that this was supposed to be a continuation of his storyline with Rick Martel. Once Martel got injured, this match basically became a match to have a match. So it really, with the Warlord was kind of looked at maybe a little lower than Santana at the time, because they had just split him off, him and the Barbarian, when they were the Powers of Pain tag team. This was probably the beginning of 1990, where Mr. Fuji was the manager, and then Fuji basically, in storyline, sold their contracts. He sold the Warlord's contract to Slick, and he sold the Barbarian's contract to Bobby Heenan, and he basically split them off. And then they broke up the Powers of Pain, and then Mr. Fuji got the Orient Express. He got Sato and Tanaka, and he brought them in to the WWF as part of his fold. So salute. This was a good match, but it was a match in order to have a match.
Okay. Anything stand out to you, Chris?
It sure felt like that. I mean, Tito looked impressive from jump for most of the match. I was kind of bored with Wardlow's work. Not to be offensive. I was really bored with his work. And then when he won, I'm like, all right, that's 3 straight matches to start the show where the big scary monsters win. But hearing from Lou what happened with the Rockers, that made sense. And then getting the insight from Kurt Hennig not actually supposed to fight Texas Tornado, I guess that made sense. So 3 matches where the matches weren't going as planned, so whatever.
All right, we have Demolition against the Hart Foundation. Brett and Anvil. This is gonna be Crush and Smash, right? But they made sure Vince on commentary is beating you over the head that Smash and Axe are identical twins. Basically, he is selling it, really telling you, hey, these guys, you can't tell them apart.
Who's who?
I don't know who's who. He goes, I can tell Crush because he's so tall, but the active Smash, I don't know. Which would obviously come into play. It's a little silly but it's okay. You have to suspend your disbelief a little bit. I'm okay with that, because it makes for fun. It makes for fun. I had a good time with this match, especially compared to the rest of the matches. Um, there's a lot going on. This is probably where Brett's telling everyone, like, "Hey guys, I might be the best worker in the world right now. You better start paying attention." Um, yeah, Vince is really selling. These guys are twins. I like the promo. Um, this is basically Brett throwing alley oops to Anvil, and Anvil just knocking it out of the park. He is so funny. He is such a character. He goes, "Think? I don't get paid to think, right? I get paid to be tough, like an anvil." I thought that was so cool, so funny. And they have great chemistry too. Brett is selling his ass off in the beginning of that match. Then he, takes over. You start doing the quick tags with the Heart Foundation. Let me see. They're selling the size for the Demolition. They're big guys. I never thought they were big guys when I was a kid because they weren't muscular, but they were tall, thick guys, like manly men.
Mhm.
They were brawny dudes.
Anvil is hit on the outside. That's gonna. Oh yeah, he's stuck like on the outside. That's gonna lead to the first pinfall, right?
That is correct.
What was the name of their finish? Did they hit their finish here? That's like the over the knee with like
Yeah.
the elbow.
Yep.
When I saw that move, I was like, "Ooh, I remember that." I don't remember the name though. And they didn't. Of course, Vince didn't say the name of the move because he never does.
No, he says, "What a maneuver!"
What a maneuver! And this is a 2 out of 3 falls match, and that's the first fall there. And they ring the bell again, like almost like a restart, and Brett is still in trouble.
Yep.
They jumped on him.
And that's exactly how it should have been.
No, absolutely, he should still be in trouble. Oh, there was a really bad spot though that I did not like. I guess Anvil eventually makes his way back to the ring, or they do something where Brett's gonna get a pin. I forgot what the spot was, but Brett's gonna get a false finish here. And is it when they do that kind of like Anvil slams Brett onto Smash, and then Crush
grabs the referee.
Yes, but which I'm okay with, but he could have broke up the pin. The pin, Brett is in between him and the ref. He jumps over Brett, literally clears him to get to the ref. That made zero sense. The ref should have been in between, Crush and the. I'm okay with it, but I'm not okay with the execution. The idea is there. The execution was bad.
It was bad position.
Yeah, the positioning was not. It made for like, oh my god, that is so bad. It was such a bad spot for me. Yeah, he jumps over Brett, and then to make things worse, he continues to bully the ref and gets himself disqualified. He still could have did the spot if the positioning was right. But that's the second fall. And then right after the second fall, literally, like this, here comes Axe. And now Vince is like, oh, here we go, whatever. They make the switcheroo. And then Vince is like, oh no, that's not Smash, that's Axe. And Piper calls him out on his bullshit. That's the good thing about old wrestling. The bullshit still happened, but the commentators were like, they weren't burying the product. They were just playing like they were confused. Like, what the hell? Like, come on, ref. But without burying the product like JR does. Like, he plays like he's doing it in character. He's not doing it like a journalist writing about wrestling. He's doing it in character. And Vince is and Piper calls Vince out on his bullshit. Bro, a minute ago you were saying you couldn't tell these guys apart. Now you're sure? Are you sure?
Exactly.
Like, how do you know that that's not Smash?
I laughed when you said that. I laughed out loud.
It was funny, yeah.
That was perfect.
Then, this is when eventually LOD is gonna come out and make the save. But during that save, there's a lot of shit going on. I don't know. The ref is not that far away from them. He probably should have seen something. But what's the finish? What do they hit? Do they hit? Oh, they hit the heart attack, right?
No.
Brett
What
rose him
happened?
up.
The finish was Jim Neidhart did a slingshot shoulder tackle onto Crush.
Oh yes, and the duck under. Like I like that spot.
Bret Hart Schoolboys.
Bret has to be the best finish guy in wrestling history. He has so many different finishes. I've never seen a wrestler with so many different like finishes when someone didn't hit their finish. Bret has to have the most, like especially on pay-per-view. He's got so many unique ways to get a win. But yeah, it's that shoulder tackle. Bret is behind. Who is it? Who gets the pin?
Crush.
Crush gets pinned. Yeah, okay. And then he rolls him over. Yeah. And then you get the promo with LOD and Heart Foundation together.
Yeah, no, and the beauty of it is that Roddy Piper did a fantastic job of constantly telling us throughout the match that Crush was the least experienced member of Demolition. So meaning that when Crush did the disqualification spot in the second fall, which on its face looks stupid, but you can logically explain that Crush is the junior member of Demolition from an experience perspective, because if that was Axe or Smash in there, that wouldn't have happened. But since it was Crush, he just kind of, he just kind of cracked and, under the pressure at the moment, costing his team, a crucial fall. Then in the third fall, when everything was getting out of control, who's the guy that you beat? You beat the junior member of the team. So everything made sense in that match. Obviously, it was a ton of fun. It's one of those tag team matches that it tells a lot of different stories. Obviously, you're going into, that was the beginning of the end of Demolition, because then obviously they go into to work against the Road Warriors, and basically the LOD just essentially take their lunch for a couple of months, and then Demolition. By the time WrestleMania 7 came around, Demolition was an afterthought. Axe was gone at the end of after the Survivor Series 1990, Axe was gone, so then Demolition became Smash and Crush, the official team, and they got broken up after WrestleMania 7. They wrestled against Tenaru and Kitao, which was more a match that was designed to build a relationship with the WWF and Tenaru's Japanese promotion at the time. And Demolition were essentially sacrificed, as a means to be able to kind of have that relationship come through. Smash wrestled as a singles as the Smash of Demolition for several months after that. But, eventually he was repackaged as a Repo Man. Then Crush was turned into Kona Crush and all this other stuff. So I wish that I can get into more detail with Demolition, because that would be a really great story. We can do that another time. But that was really the beginning of the end of the Demolition in SummerSlam 1990. Fantastic match, but it was the beginning of the end for them.
All right. Then we're going to get Bad News Brown did not get an entrance, right? I thought that was interesting.
No.
Was Bad News Brown considered a jobber?
No, he certainly wasn't. But Bad News Brown had any music, and a lot of his stuff was flat. So to not give, to always say, have him be introduced once he was in the ring, that was probably the best way to introduce him. Okay,
and he's gonna go against Jake, and Boss Man is like special guest referee. This had some DQ spots in it with some chair spots. No DQ, but I'm okay with that only because it's Boss Man, and you can kind of say, well, if it was me, I wouldn't want it to be a DQ. When it's the boys let the boys fight until it's over. So I was okay with that.
Boss Man was busy that night.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Like, Jesus, Boss Man.
He cut like 2 promos.
Yes, there were so many promos in this damn thing.
He worked harder than if he would have actually wrestled the match.
Yeah, absolutely. And he had the sweat to show it.
Yes, he did.
Don't skip Jake's promo, which was sensational.
Well, Jake, every damn thing Jake does seems to be. When I see Jake, and this is Jake, this has to be prime best Jake ever. Lou, you can tell me what you think is the best Jake ever. But when I seen this version of Jake, and I remember this match, I don't remember the match, but I remember it happening, and I remember Boss Man is gonna make the save the snake. But I remember, I mean, forget about that. I'm watching this damn thing and I see Jake and I'm like, in the music and the bag and his face and his promo, I'm like, Jesus, this guy is good.
The crowd
Some people are
exploded.
just ridiculously good. He got a huge pop. I'm assuming he's a top 3 babyface at the time. Cause Jesus, this is a huge pop.
Hogan, Warrior, Snake probably underneath them.
Yeah, this is insane. And I'm like, shit, this guy was good. Like, what a waste. And then the loudest thing I heard all night is when he calls for the DDT. He
Yeah,
calls for that shit. I literally wrote down the DDT is so over. Jesus. It has to be one of the most over finishes ever in terms of crowd reaction. Not for the finish, but for telling you I'm about to hit the finish. That and probably, the diamond cutter, the setup for the diamond cutter. Jesus. That's all I could think. But yeah, Bossman's gonna save the snake at this is eventually there's a second chair spot and Bossman does do the DQ. And then, I like Bad News Brown did something really cool here where he kind of acts like he's gonna leave. But you see it in his face, he's like, that's like a hood dude. That's what a hood dude would do. I've seen that look 2 or 3 times in my life. The sucker punch, that sneak punch, like where you act like everything is all good and you're like, all right, whatever. And then
it's
you go
cool,
to walk
bro.
away, and when the person leaves, you sucker him. I really thought that was really, really impressive. But, what stood out to me was that damn DDT setup and the crowd exploding.
The crowd also went crazy when he grabbed the bag.
Yes, the snake was
The
over.
crowd went
Snake
crazy.
was over. The music was over. The damn finish was over. This dude is over. Jesus, so good. I thought he was so good. He stood out so much as a well-rounded performer. Him and Savage. Good luck on this show.
Yeah.
Good luck competing with those guys.
The one thing about Jake Roberts is when I think of him and I think of his run, I think the best years that he had in the WWF were probably between 1988 and 1990. Like that right there. And unfortunately for me, I think that it was not putting Bad News Brown with Jake Roberts was not the best pairing, because you have Jake Roberts versus Bad News Brown with Big Boss Man as the referee. That is a hat on top of a hat on top of a hat. It's just gimmicks on top of gimmicks. So you have Jake Roberts with the Python. You have now Bad News Brown bringing these rats, and then you have a law enforcement officer gimmick as the referee. Like, it's just a gimmick on top of a gimmick on top of a gimmick. Listen, the match was what it was. I mean, Jake Roberts' promo was fantastic. Jake Roberts always cut great promos, but the fact that the snake kept wrapping around him and doing all that, the visual of that was that
was sick.
So cool, so sick to see that. The match was what it was. Bad News Allen, Bad News Brown, great wrestler from Canada, wrestled for many years for Stu Hart's Stampede Wrestling, and then one of the first ladder matches you would see is Bad News Allen against Bret Hart, and Bad News Allen working against Owen Hart, working against probably Brian Pillman. I'm not sure if Pillman was around when Bad News, if they kind of intersected there at Stampede. When he came to the WWF, Bad News Brown did. I think this was 87, 88 when he got to the WWF. They put him as like this badass, from Harlem, New York, and he was undefeated for a long time. Then once they put him in there with Hogan and Savage and he got fed to them, that was pretty much the end. And it was just increasingly going down. Considering that Jake Roberts had a fantastic feud earlier with, they ran from the spring of 1989 until WrestleMania 6 in 1990 with Ted DiBiase. And then, he went from Ted DiBiase to Bad News Brown. It kind of felt like a little bit of a drop-off for Jake. The match was what it was. It wasn't anything great. I did like, Boss Man as the referee, because I actually thought that he was able to kind of maintain control of the match. The DQ finish was good because you didn't want to beat Bad News Brown, because you still wanted to retain his heat, obviously, because Jake and Bad News Brown were going to be working the house show loop after SummerSlam. then with Jake Roberts with the DDT, the music, the presentation, all that stuff. And this is one of the main reasons why I get so frustrated with the DDT and how it's used today by today's wrestlers. When Jake Roberts would hit the DDT, it was a simple, basic DDT. Nobody got up. Now guys hit DDTs from the second balcony of the building, and guys still kick out at 2.
Yeah, but Lou, it's like same thing I say about Sean's super kick. If it doesn't look as good, you shouldn't even use it as a finish. Jake's DDT looks light years better than everyone else's. I recently saw Eddie Kingston sick DDT when he faced Cody. I remember thinking, I probably didn't even say it in the video, but when I watched it, I remember thinking this might be the second best DDT of all time. Right when I seen it, because it was really close to that Jake style. Yeah, Jake's DDT is the best, and it still looks the best. No one is even close.
Yeah, I'm just saying that with the DDT, I would like for it to be used a lot less in pro wrestling, and if guys use it, establish it as a finish. So to kind of give it the respect that it deserves, because in all honesty, people have played the DDT out way too much.
Any thoughts, Chris?
I actually enjoyed this match. I thought Bad News probably did some of the best work of the night to me personally. I thought his facial expressions were believable. I thought he looked like he was putting a hurting on Jake compared to some of the other guys, Warlord namely. But yeah, I thought I enjoyed the match. I wanted to see a DDT, but at least I got to see the snake. The one thing that I probably was missing was the rats. They sold the rats, and I thought I was going to see a snake eat a rat.
That would have been sick. Well, I always say
that.
There's nothing worse in wrestling than when you tease something and don't pay it off.
They showed the rat, so I'm like, okay, this is going to be crazy.
At least show one. At least pull one out. And then run away when the snake comes out. But
they kept mentioning, have you ever seen a Harlem rat? So I'm like, okay, this is gonna be sick. this is what I came to see. I didn't get it, but
it's all good. It's all good.
A hat on top of a hat on top of a hat.
Yeah,
it's all good.
But yeah, I enjoyed the match. Back to the Demolition versus Hearts. The Hart Foundation. That was my favorite match of the night.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah, probably mine too, yeah. Although this next match, Hogan versus Earthquake.
Wait. Look. Don't skip. You're going to skip. There's a match you're skipping.
Uh-oh. What match did I skip?
Hacksaw?
Yeah, we're going to keep skipping it. Anyway, I remember watching that thinking, I'm not right. I'm not taking notes.
Nope.
I'm not taking notes on this shit.
That was completely ripped off the WWF 1990, political stuff. You had Brother Love.
I was never a fan of just because someone's from another country, they're bad guys, and now you're telling me that this guy, in order to get your love, he has to walk around with a flag that isn't even his.
Poor guy. Poor guy.
He has to kiss America's ass, but he's not almost not repping himself anymore.
Hacksaw should have just put a leash on him and just paraded him around the arena.
Well, think about it. I mean, this was at the time when in 1990, this is where the Cold War had ended and all that jazz. So
I did skip something. I guess I forgot to take notes. Brother Love has a segment. I forgot to take notes on it. But I thought this was cool, and I want to get your thoughts. This was an introduction to Sergeant Slaughter, or it felt like an introduction.
It was. It was a reintroduction of Sergeant Slaughter to the WWF.
Was he in WWF before?
Oh yes.
But as Sergeant Slaughter?
Of course.
Okay,
in the 80s, he was like babyface, G.I. Joe, Sergeant Slaughter. He was with the WWF probably 5 or 6 years earlier. There was a dispute around money because Sergeant Slaughter actually got the whole
he's a G.I. Joe
to be the G.I. Joe thing.
Yeah, he's a true G.I. Joe character.
And the WWF wanted his cut, and he was like and that whole money dispute caused Sarge, he left the WWF. He did the whole G.I. Joe thing for a while. He wrestled in other regional promotions. And then
AWA, I believe.
I think he wrestled in the AWA. I think he wrestled in another company called the AWF for a while.
Okay.
And then he came back to the WWF in 1990.
So this is a reintroduction, and he's coming out as a heel.
Correct.
And Sergeant Slaughter is in full character, and just like Ted DiBiase earlier, did not miss a beat. Oh, and Brother Love too, Bruce Pritchard. Shout out to him. He did a really good job too.
He was great.
So these guys, these character actors, you can say almost both of them, I thought it was fun. Nice way to reintroduce Slaughter. I like Slaughter's body type. No muscles, but big, tall.
He looked huge, like a giant.
Big gut. I liked his gear too. He had the hat on. I liked his look a lot. But yeah, going back to Hogan against Earthquake. Well, one of the main points of the match is Hogan trying to slam Earthquake. This was a Hogan staple. He did it anytime he wrestled a 400-pounder. This was going to be the story, or one of the stories. The first attempt, Earthquake doesn't even budge. He got nothing. Oh, and you have Bossman in Hogan's corner, Dino Bravo, right? In Earthquake's corner. Jesus, a lot going on. Oh, right away, I write. Did Bossman just hit Earthquake in front of the ref? I question mark.
I did right. Interferes in ref's face.
Ding 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 ding.
Yeah,
ding,
no,
ding,
this was not a DQ finish, but they're doing double team maneuvers. Some of Hogan's best offense in this match, by the way. A lot of action from Hogan. This is New Japan. This is New Japan Hogan. This whole damn match is New Japan Hogan. Like he goes for the second
start,
attempt.
I was confused. I thought it was a tag match because at first they're standing in the corner and they're not. Dino's standing on the corner, so I'm like, all right, this is a tag match. It's not what I thought. And then they finally dropped. I was really confused.
Absolutely. The only reason I knew it wasn't a tag is because I couldn't remember. I was a big Hogan fan, and I could not remember for the life of me a tag match at a pay-per-view like that with Hogan and against Earthquake in a tag. Either way, he goes for the second slam attempt. He gets a little closer. So, nice storytelling here. But he falls back, and you see the spot even to this day. Every now and then you see that story, the 3-slam story.
That was crazy for him to let Earthquake fall on his chest like that.
Yeah.
Props to him for that.
Yes, I wrote that, and this is another little weird thing here, considering it's 1990. But everybody knows Hogan hooks up, but Earthquake is gonna hit his finish, and it looks really. Twice. I like the setup. Yes, I know. I like the setup though. The boom, boom when he's stomping, like jump.
That was cool.
Like when he used to do that shit, I was like, okay, this is scary. This dude is scary. I didn't like him, but I was scared as a little kid. I remember when he hit the doom, doom, doom. He hits it twice, for Christ's sake. I'm like,
and then the first one, he gets patted on the shoulder by Earl. Yo, you got to do it again.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Hey, one more time. One more time, kid.
He gives him the Iggy. Do it again.
One more time. Because, of course, one is not enough for Hogan. He has to have the biggest freaking comeback in history. No sell. No selling at all of this devastating maneuver.
Like 1.5.
1.5, and not only kicks out, like pushes him off like he's like Earthquake is a baby.
And they said his ribs were wrecked from the last one, no?
Yeah. So it's the classic Hogan comeback, and of course this is the third attempt at the slam. He hits the slam. What else happens here? Leg drop, but then the ref is distracted after the leg drop, so it's not the finish.
Mm-hmm.
And, they go outside, and we get a table spot in 1990. AE-Dub, AE-Dub, AE-Dub match. First of all, it was really fun, but you got no DQs, you got no selling, you got table spots, you got the big comeback. This is crazy for a Hogan match, but I had a great time watching this match. I thought it was so much fun.
The most exciting DQ win of all time? Question mark. Because Hogan he thought he won the belt. He was so excited to get that 10 count.
He actually won by count out, but you know.
Oh yeah, he wins by count out. Yeah, he wins by count out, which I'm okay with that. I don't like the fact that a babyface can't get a count out win. I never liked that. I think it's weird because in MMA, a win is a win is a win. In boxing, a win is a win. The only time an MMA fighter or a boxer is not okay with the win is when it's stopped on some bullshit, like on some cheating, like the ref made a bad call, and it's like, or injury stoppage. And most like the fighters, the real fighters, like they're like, nah, I didn't want that. That's not what I wanted. I wanted a real fight. I wanted him, I wanted to see who was the better man. But a count out, I'm okay with it, I guess.
Bro,
I got the table spot, so I'm cool with it.
That was your highlight. That was the highlight for you. The highlight for me, correct me if I'm wrong, the first submission of the night was a Boston Crab by none other than Earthquake.
Oh, I actually, yes, I did write something about that, and I thought that looked really good, and I was thinking, it's a shame that when someone does either the Boston Crab or what's the one with the front, oh my God, where am I doing it? Cobra Clutch? No, what's the Cobra Clutch? Camel Clutch. When someone hits a camel clutch now or something similar, or a crossface, no one can freaking bend their back anymore. These wrestlers, their back flexibility, it's like Hogan has great back flexibility. Like he's taking that move all the way. Now you get put in a sharpshooter or you get put in a Boston Crab and you're like up on your hands and your back is flat the whole time. It's like, yo, cinch that shit in. I know it hurts a little bit, but it doesn't hurt if you work on your flexibility as a wrestler. It's important. But yeah, I had a good time with this match, man.
I did too. It was a lot of fun.
At least
it was going nuts. The crowd was super electric.
This is still Hogan, beloved Hogan. All the kids love Hogan. Everyone loves Hogan. It's still Hulkamania at its prime. When does Hogan? But I know Hulkamania eventually starts to die down. 94-ish, maybe, Lou? When 91, it's going to start dying already? Jesus. Well, maybe you could...
You're talking from 1984. So, you know...
True. It's a long run.
It's a fairly long run, you know, when you really...
It's a long run. Okay.
So, I mean, listen, this match was a whole... It was a lot of fun. Now, yeah, they did a lot of the goofy stuff here that when you look at it on its face now, you know, with all the things that I gripe about modern wrestling, it's all in this match. So
yes, it is.
It's all in this match, all of it. There's a couple of things though that was really cool in the commentary. The way that Piper did a really good job of covering when that happened, to say, hey, the referee's just trying to get control of the match. Both teams were out of bounds. He's basically saying both teams are cheating. So the referee's just like, he's just trying to get it under control and not throw the match out. With Hogan working against the Earthquake. Now, the thing is, with most people, you know, when you look at the Earthquake, you look at him, oh, he's just some fat slob. No, my man. This dude, John Tenta, was a legit super heavyweight wrestler. He actually fought sumo professionally before going into pro wrestling.
I did know that, yes.
So pretty much with a guy like Tenta, if he didn't want you to move him, you ain't moving him. You know, if Hogan tried to move him and Tenta didn't want to go anywhere, he would have made Hulk Hogan look pretty silly. But Tenta was a fantastic worker. He really was. John Tenta probably looked like he was 40 in this match, and he was probably about 25. He was.
That's crazy. Are you serious?
Wow.
Yes. John Tenta
he does look like 40. Yep.
Just remember, John Tenta died at age 42 from cancer.
Sheesh.
So Just do the math. He was in his 20s during this match, but he looked so old because he was bald and all this other jazz, and he was so big.
Yeah, he's so big. It's like no kid could be this big.
But the match, the entire match was obviously it's designed the way that this match was designed on television. When Earthquake put Hogan down and injured him, the whole injury angle was because Hulk Hogan was filming a movie, so it was a way to get the Hulk off of TV. Then when they did the whole card lettering campaign, they're like, "Oh, send your cards and letters to Hulk Hogan," and all this stuff. All that was basically so the WWF can be able to send their catalogs and be able to sell merch to people over the mail. Like that was the way that it was done back in 1990. I was a subscriber of WWF magazine, and we get it every month in the mail, and I was always very happy when it came. But it was really, it was just really a way to kind of establish the Earthquake. And I mean, I don't want to get too much into the whole Earthquake story and how he was brought into the WWF, but in this particular match, it was designed obviously to, it was designed to basically be an infomercial to show Hulk and Earthquake. That's the reason why there was essentially a non-finish, a DQ or count-out finish in a Hulk Hogan match. I mean, you've seen 1,000 Hulk Hogan matches.
The story continues, basically.
Yeah, like you probably, if you see 1,000 Hulk Hogan matches, you probably, if you're lucky, if you get to 10 countouts, in Hogan matches. This was designed perfectly so that Hogan can get a win. He technically didn't beat Earthquake. It was as Roddy Piper said so eloquently in his commentary, he was like, it's a cheap victory. He didn't beat nothing. It was a cheap win. It was designed so that when this goes into the house shows, when it does the loop around the country, since you didn't get a finish on television, now you have to go to the live event to see an actual finish.
See the finish, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they did that around the loop. And then once we got to the end of the year, November, December, they did an actual tag team match on a primetime main event on NBC where it was Hulk Hogan and Tugboat against Bravo and the Earthquake, and you got the finish.
Let me ask you, Lou.
Yes, sir.
When you go to the network and you go to click on this SummerSlam, there is Tugboat is in the picture with Hogan. Was he supposed to be involved in this and couldn't be there?
Yes, he was supposed to be Hulk Hogan's corner man. And what ended up happening was in storyline, Dino Bravo and the Earthquake put him down the same way they did Hulk Hogan. When Earthquake hit the Earthquake splash finish on him maybe 3 times or something.
Oh, I kind of remember that. Thank you.
So they put Tugboat down. This was actually supposed to be the beginning of Tugboat's heel turn. Because the way that it was supposed to be originally set up is that Tugboat, got jumped by Bravo and Earthquake. Hulk Hogan did not come to help him. He was put out on the shelf. And then the whole gimmick thing with Sergeant Slaughter that they did with the whole Iraqi, whatever stuff, they were literally going to do that with Tugboat. I was like, that would have been ridiculous because Tugboat was not over as a babyface. He was not going to be over as a heel. But, eventually that led to Tugboat's turning in 1991 when, Earthquake had already finished his run with Hogan. Then he had like a storyline with Andre the Giant that, Jimmy Hart said, hey, I got Andre the Giant's contract and now he's going to be a tag team with Earthquake. Andre basically said, no, I'm not going to be your partner. I never agreed to that. Earthquake jumps Andre, puts him down, beats him up. And then there was a 6-man tag team match it was the Mountie and the Nasty Boys against Tugboat and the Bushwhackers. And that's where Tugboat turns on the Bushwhackers. And then he, becomes christened Typhoon, and then they put him with Earthquake as the Natural Disasters.
Typhoon.
Good old Typhoon.
What did you take away from this, Chris? The submission?
The submission was it for me. I was shocked. But I just remembered Kurt Hennig had a sleeper hold at one point, I think.
If
I remember correctly.
That's the only one move that he never applied perfectly.
The sleeper hold.
Fact.
But yeah, the crowd was nuts.
He loved it.
When Hogan went for the first body slam, I was going nuts. I'm like, hell no. I'm like, Hell no. And then when he didn't do it, I'm like, okay, cool, save that. And then if, like I said, it was like the most exciting DQ of all time because Hulk looked like he won the belt. He was jumping up and down, hands in the air, like it was an exciting match overall.
Yeah, the afterbirth
Really
of the
enjoyed
match,
it.
the afterbirth of the match was just as fun because, you know, Earthquake wanted to get some extra on Hogan, and he actually lifted him up, put him in a choke, and lifted him up, which was so cool
Yes.
because he was manhandling Hogan. Unfortunately for the Big Boss Man, I don't know what the hell he grabbed because, you know,
Yeah.
he what he had in his hand was not gimmicked. I mean, when he hit Earthquake with that, you saw the welts immediately. And
Bruised him up.
I looked up and I was like, yo, Earthquake's got to be the toughest dude in the world because he literally, you know, he has a 300-pound man swinging that thing at him as hard as he could, and he didn't even flinch.
Legit bruised up.
Yeah,
Like immediately.
all the welts, or you know, or just the welts on his back.
Yeah, damn near 500-pound gangster right there.
And I know, but I loved what ended up happening. We hit him with the chair, and then you know, Earthquake just stood there, and then Bravo and the Boss was like, "Oh, all right." And he took out the Billy Club, and everybody ran. It was like, all right. Everybody's like, okay, they're running for cover. So that was cool. And then obviously the Hogan promo afterward was a typical Hogan promo, but the one that Earthquake cut with Jimmy Hart and Bravo, that's the promo that you cut when you're trying to sell tickets to house shows. That was perfect.
Another thing, you know, during this show, you're gonna see 5-6 managers. All the managers are over.
Every single one.
Every single one of them. They're all allowed to go out there and do their thing, and it helps the wrestlers. I know they're great, but I know that we've had people who've had potential and weren't given that chance because just, you know, we don't do managers anymore.
I mean, it's the same thing that, you know, when I say about Robert Stone, like
that dude's got potential.
He does, but here's the thing: a guy like Robert Stone, as I said, you can't get a guy like him over and be a comedy. You can't. How can I say this? You can't be a comedian and have the people laugh but take it seriously. Like, you know, Bobby the Brain Heenan. How many times would Bobby get his ass whooped? And how many times? And how many times did we as the fans ever believe that Bobby lost his heat? Never.
Never. Yeah, but Bobby, yeah, the thing is you got to get Robert Stone over first. They did it in reverse. They started the comedy before it was over. We talked about that.
Absolutely.
That's just wrong. But we will be fixing that soon.
I hope so.
All right. Last but not least, we have Ultimate Warrior coming out with the teal. Was that belt strap teal, green? What was that?
It looked green, aqua.
Like, how many belts did Warrior have? Did he switch out the damn leather all the time? Because I remember him with so many different colors. I remember yellow, like
white, teal,
yeah, which was awesome.
Probably wore fuchsia maybe one time. God only knows.
I wonder if that was in his contract. You got to get me a different color belt every pay-per-view. I don't want to hear
every show.
I know Warrior was a tough negotiator. I'm sure this was in the contract. And he's going against Rick Rude, who, woo, like this man is a freaking stud. Comes out with the spray painted like tights. It was always cool when he would, you know, add the story to his tights. And you see kind of Warrior in the cage, right? On his tights.
Mm-hmm.
That was fire. Rick Rude comes out, and if you watch it on the network, they changed the damn song. I guess there's some copyright issues now.
I hate that. His original theme was so cool. The one they play now is garbage.
That is so fucked up that if you got permission, let's say 40 years ago, right, and you were able to film the product with permission, that 30, 40 years later, whatever, you got to now change it, even though you originally had permission.
It's the rights fees, you know.
I got it. It was just sad because that damn song was perfect for him.
Yeah, the original one. Yeah, that's really cool.
I mean, I'm sure you can find it online, but still.
Oh, of course.
And you know, this is a cage match, the old school blue cage that would bust you open right away. Warrior's gonna come out. He's gonna run around this damn cage 700 times. I like that Rude gets on top of the cage and calls him in like, bro, hurry up.
Get in here. Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna get Warrior climb the outside of the cage. Rude is inside of the cage, and the match starts on top of the cage, which I thought was cool. I actually thought for a Warrior match that this was pretty good, pretty fun.
Yeah.
Warrior didn't do anything that looked bad. Like, he stuck to his routine. Yeah, there it is. That's it. And then you just pick a girl from the audience and make out with
That's
them.
right. That's right.
Everyone can do that. But yeah, Warrior, I thought this was really solid for a Warrior match. Rick Rude, of course, another guy just bumping around and is great at it. And he is jacked. He's not as big as Warrior, but in terms of being shredded, this dude has to be the most shredded guy in the company. Jesus. How much more shredded can a person be?
Not much
That's
more.
another person. I think Rude a little bit more than perfect because Rude had the physique. He had pretty much everything. He was perfect. A little bit more perfect than perfect when it comes to being like a top guy. Because I thought Perfect looked a little bit underneath with the singlet. Like he looked like a IC champ. I always thought he needed to go up a step. Like he needed to change his look or something. I always thought that about Mr. Perfect, even though his work was main event work. But either way, this is Warrior hits is gonna. Oh, there's color in this match right away. It feels like a minute in.
Immediately.
Shit, was that hard way? Like I don't know. Like what happened here? He got that shit. He snuck. Well, you know what? It's great camera work too. Because 1 minute there's nothing going on, all of a sudden there's color, and I'm like, oh shit, where'd that come from?
I mean that's great. That's great hiding of the blade, particularly knowing that Rick Rude didn't have anything in his fingers or wrists that he can hide the blade in. So he probably got it. Probably Bobby gave it to him, or the referee. Somebody had to give him the blade.
That either way it was executed.
It was executed just fine. It was executed
Smooth.
perfectly, very smooth.
And of course, whatever. I thought it was fun. I had a good time. I thought it was a good way to end the show. I like that they ended with the title, even though you have Hogan. I know it could be hard, but that title had to mean something. You got to put that on last, even though they had to give it the cage stipulation to make it feel bigger than Hogan.
Yeah,
right.
So, but what did you think, Lou?
I thought looking back on it now, I thought the match was really short.
It is short, but it's Warrior, baby.
It's a very
cage setup was longer.
It took longer to set up the cage than it did for the match to go. When I watched this match, I look back at how great Ravishing Rick Rude was, and how not great the Ultimate Warrior was.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because this is a match where Rick Rude, he does so much. I mean, he does so many things to help get Warrior over. He put over all the Warrior stuff in the beginning of the match. He got the color immediately. Great camera work. Obviously, when Warrior got his color, the camera wasn't able to hide it because Warrior didn't understand. Like, put your face down because I can see him, cutting himself with the blade, while he was on the mat. The match was what it was. It was a typical Ultimate Warrior match. I was a little frustrated because when I saw that match, I remember back to the match they had on Saturday night's main event a month earlier, and it was pretty much the exact same match minus the cage.
Yeah,
and
I could see that happening.
And I was a little frustrated by that because I'm figuring that for a big pay-per-view like this, knowing that you had a television match that basically gave away this match on free TV you shouldn't have done, even though they went to a disqualification finish on that match. You got to do a better job. Like, you got to vary it up a little bit. Then with Rick Rude, I mean, Rick Rude logically had about 15 chances to win the match, and every single time he chose to continue beating up the Ultimate Warrior. And I'm just thinking to myself, the best way to beat up the Ultimate Warrior is to take the title off of him.
Win the match.
But again, it was one of those stories that really it showed how great Rick Rude was in the ring, how not great the Ultimate Warrior was, how phenomenal Bobby Heenan was, and how it showed. And here and the biggest thing that showed in this match is that it really showed that Hulk Hogan was the main event, because the roar of the crowd for Hogan, it felt like the show died down after the Hogan match. Ultimate Warrior didn't get as big of a pop. When the show ended, it didn't feel like it had that big. It's like when Hogan was doing the posing, he was doing the posing for what felt like a half an hour, and the fans were just gobbling it all up.
Honestly, I was waiting. I'm like, what's gonna happen here? Is Boss Man gonna turn on him? I was waiting because it took so long. He was in the ring. He did this like 30 times, it felt like.
I mean, and the fans were gobbling it all up. And really what it felt like with Warrior is, when I saw that match, looking at it now with a different set of eyes, is that even though the Warrior was the champion, he was never the top guy. It was always Hogan. Always. They experimented putting the title on him, and I think that may have been the beginning of the end for the Ultimate Warrior, the WWF champion, quite frankly, after that SummerSlam.
Yeah, I mean,
this. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
This match for me kind of summed up the night, especially early on, with maybe one exception where the workers, me personally, thought they got screwed. They put a show on, and the big muscle-bound guy had to win. Just seeing Rude come out, his entrance, his gear, his look, his moveset, I thought of like 5 guys. In like 5 seconds I saw him, I thought of Val Venus, Velveteen. I thought of like so many people, and I could tell how influential this dude was. Bobby Roode. So many people, I thought of how influential this man was. And then the match itself, it was cool, but Rick was really carrying the match. He went to the top like 3 times. I'm always conflicted with cage matches because I find them stupid. I don't think there should be a door at all. It should be you either climb over the top or you get a pin. Once that door opens, it's just really weird and awkward because you can literally just walk out or run out. I hate to see guys crawling for that door. It's a cool visual with the camera there and Bobby slamming the door, but we can do without the door.
That might have been the spot of the night. I mean, of the match. When he cracked him in the head with that damn door?
Yeah, it's just the door. It's just always awkward, that door engagement. The door being slammed is always cool. But hold on. No, lock the door. No door. No more locked doors.
Okay, well.
I will say that I really enjoyed Alfred Hayes when he was out there and he was explaining the confines of the cage, because that's really all that is. That was cool. It does 2 things. One is it obviously buys time for the guys to construct the cage, but number 2 is that it actually gets the cage over with the audience to see that you got to have 15 grown men having to maneuver this thing and put it into place and all that, and then to think that you're only going to have 2 guys getting in there. And I love Piper's description is like it's like 2 sharks in a fishbowl. It's great, it's fantastic for the spectators, but it sucks for the participants. It's just
that was a good line.
Great line. It really was.
Well, speaking of that, who was your MVP? Who stole the show? Who stood out? What did you think?
I'm gonna say Dusty. Dusty's work with the story, his facial expressions, him standing in the ring, holding on to the rope and just gazing, just thinking. I thought Dusty, even though he lost the match, didn't do much in the match. I thought he was great.
Well, I'll just give a quick shout out to Heart Foundation. I just can picture Brett back there like, we got to go out there and have a great match. I don't care. I don't want to hear your bullshit. I don't care how long it takes. We're going to go out there. We're going to tear the house down. No excuses. No one could convince Brett to go out there and have a whack match. Good luck. And you can just see that in that match. It's like there's
That's
a
what
lot
worked
of
for me.
thought, a lot of effort, a lot of energy, like a lot of time put into that story, and the match quality and moves and everything. There's athleticism and selling, and I thought that was pretty cool. But for me, just seeing how great everything about Jake was, and once he did this, I don't think I'll forget this ever again for the rest of my life. I remember it being a cool finish. I remember how beautiful it looked and thinking, wow, that's the best DDT I've ever seen. But hearing the roar, like that crowd just losing their minds, I just really enjoyed seeing that version of Jake. And I can kind of take that with me. Luke?
To AEW.
To AEW.
Wow, this show, it's kind of difficult, to try to pinpoint just one. I do love, Dusty Rhodes' performance, because Dusty Rhodes really did have to carry a tremendous story thread throughout the entire show, showing different levels. To give somebody different, I would probably go with Mr. Perfect. And even though he had a very short match, he gave two excellent promos. He gave one where he was the cocky, arrogant, nobody beats Mr. Perfect, and then 10 minutes later when he got beat and he goes back to the locker room and he's looking at, I'll be back, Tornado, I'll be back, you cheated, blah 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 blah. So I would go with Kurt Hennig only because I would probably go with Dusty, because Dusty was really, really good in this show. I really liked a lot of things on this show. I mean, from the managers to the promos, the announcing was actually really good. Even though, you say Vince McMahon and Roddy Piper, but the thing is with Piper is that he can go back and forth between babyface and heel, because in all honesty, he both.
He was insane anyway.
But he
his
could do both.
character's insane, so it's fine.
So he's able to get away with that. So it was, I think, overall of all the early SummerSlams, this actually is the one that I enjoy the most, that I can watch back from beginning to end. With the few exceptions, there's a few matches that I can skip in the show, but for the most part, the show was a lot of fun. The only thing I wish is that the matches were probably a little bit longer, because they squeezed in 10 matches in a 2.5-hour show. So when you look at video packages and the promos, and then the 5-minute break, that they always had on pay-per-view back then, when they actually did intermission on a WWF pay-per-view. So overall, a lot of fun, and it led to a lot of really cool storylines going into the end. The remaining, the fall and the winter of 1990 and into 1991, there was a lot of good storytelling, and that was just the beginning of it.
Like and subscribe, everyone.